Open Mind Storytime with Enchanted Circle Theater.
Hi everyone, my name is Steve Angel. I'm an actor with Enchanted Circle Theater, and today I'm going to read the story The Lost Button from the book Frog and Toad Are Friends, written and illustrated by Arnold Lobel. I chose this book because it's one that I loved reading when I was a kid, and I read it to my children now, and they love it, and so I thought it was a great story to share. And I'm sitting in my garden today near a fairy house and a house for gnomes. Just seems like exactly the sort of place Frog and Toad might find a lost button. Toad and Frog went for a long walk. They walked across a large meadow. They walked in the woods. They walked along the river. At last they went back home to Toad's house. "Oh, drat," said Toad. "Not only do my feet hurt, but I have lost one of the buttons from my jacket." "Don't worry," said Frog. "We will go back to all the places where we walked. We will soon find your button." They walked back to the large meadow. They began to look for the button in the tall grass. "Here is your button," cried Frog. "That is not my button," said Toad. "That button is black. My button is white." Toad put the black button into his pocket. A sparrow flew down. "Excuse me," said the sparrow. "Did you lose a button?" "I found one." "That is not my button," said Toad. "That button has 2 holes. My button has 4 holes." Toad put the button with 2 holes into his pocket. They went back to the woods and looked on the dark paths. "Here is your button," said Frog. "That is not my button," cried Toad. "That button is small. My button was big." Toad put the small button into his pocket. A raccoon came out from behind a tree. "I heard you were looking for a button," he said. "Here is one that I just found." "That is not my button," wailed Toad. "That button is square. My button was round." Toad put the square button into his pocket. Frog and Toad went back to the river. They looked for the button in the mud. "Here is your button," said Frog. "That is not my button," shouted Toad. "That button is thin. My button was thick." Toad put the thin button into his pocket. He was very angry. He jumped up and down and screamed, "The whole world is covered with buttons, and not one of them is mine." Toad ran home and slammed the door. There, on the floor, he saw his white, 4-holed, big, round, thick button. "Oh," said Toad, "it was here all the time. What a lot of trouble I have made for Frog." Toad took all the buttons out of his pocket. He took his sewing box down from the shelf. Toad sewed the buttons all over his jacket. The next day, Toad gave his jacket to Frog. Frog thought it was beautiful. He put it on and jumped for joy. None of the buttons fell off. Toad had sewed them on very well. I hope you enjoyed The Lost Button by Arnold Lobel. And from all of us at Enchanted Circle Theater, thank you for visiting us and for joining Open Mind Storytime. And I hope that you'll come back and do it again soon.